The restaurant was the kind of place where everything gleamed: polished floors, polished glasses, polished people. Laughter chimed like something rehearsed, and conversations rose and fell in the same elegant rhythm, as if even sound here obeyed a dress code. Inside the Aurelia house, reputation wasn't just decoration, it was currency. People didn't simply eat here, they displayed themselves, and yet on this particular evening, none of that beauty mattered, because the moment the sharp voice of the hostess sliced through the chatter, every head began to turn like metal pulled by a magnet. "Excuse me," she snapped. "This table is reserved for members only." It wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough that people felt the sting of it. The woman she targeted stood frozen beside a tiny table near the wall, her fingers lightly touching the back of a chair she had almost pulled out to sit in. The restaurant was packed, and this was the only space the staff had allowed her to approach. Even then, they treated her like she was crossing a border she didn't belong to. The woman's name was Isabella Vance, though at that moment she might as well have been invisible. The staff, busy rushing around to please regulars, had mistaken her for just another lost young woman trying to sneak into a place she didn't deserve to be in. And Isabella, dressed in plain clothes for the first time in years, her hair tied back simply, her face bare of the usual mask of makeup, didn't look like the polished heiress people were used to seeing in magazines or at galas. Maybe that was why no one looked twice at her. Or maybe they did and simply didn't care. After all, this was a place where people measured worth by appearance, and she had slipped in looking like someone unremarkable. That was her plan for the evening. She had wanted quiet. Anonymity. A night where she wasn't a Vance but just a person grabbing dinner, but as it turned out, the world didn't know how to treat her when she wasn't wearing her crown. Her credit card, one she almost never used, had failed. The reservation she made anonymously had disappeared. The staff had apologized, but with the kind of apology that blamed her for not belonging here. They spoke to her as if she were trying to steal something: their time, their tables, their exclusivity. And when she stood aside awkwardly, simply trying to pick a spot out of the way to wait, they cornered her with irritation written across their faces. The hostess crossed her arms and stepped forward, her voice dripping with authority backed by nothing but pride. "Ma'am, please don't make this difficult. You can't sit here." Isabella tried to speak. "I wasn't trying to," but she didn't get the chance to finish, because a calm voice behind her cut gently through the tension and changed the entire atmosphere of the room in a way nobody expected. "She's with me." No one saw him at first. They only heard the voice, steady, low, and firm, not because he was trying to dominate the space but because he simply existed with a quiet confidence that drew attention without force. The crowd parted slightly, and a man walked into the small circle of tension as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ethan Ward wasn't dressed for this place any more than Isabella was. His shirt still had faint marks from the garage where he spent his mornings fixing engines. His dark hair was slightly messy, not styled into the slick perfection around him. His jeans were clean but worn at the edges, and he walked with the tired posture of someone who spent the entire day working and still had errands to run. But what made everyone pause wasn't his clothes, it was the little girl holding his hand. Lily, no more than 6, looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. She held a small backpack decorated with stickers, and her hair was tied into uneven pigtails that looked like they had been done in a hurry. She clutched a crayon drawing in her other hand, a picture already wrinkled from her excitement. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't glare. He didn't step aggressively toward anyone. He simply placed himself beside Isabella as if he belonged there and repeated, quieter this time, but with even more certainty, "She's with me." The entire restaurant changed in that moment. Not the decor or the lighting, but the energy, the silent electricity that passed between the people watching. The hostess blinked. She had been prepared to push back against Isabella, but this? A man stepping in calmly, not angrily. A father with a child? Someone who didn't look rich enough to challenge the rules of the place. She didn't know how to respond. Isabella turned toward him, her breath catching. She had never seen him before. Not once. Not anywhere. And yet he stood there like a shield she hadn't asked for but desperately needed. "Sir," the hostess stammered, "this is a private, we're staying," Ethan said gently, as if he were saying something as simple as, "It's raining outside," or, "Your table is ready." His tone left no room for debate, not because he forced it, but because he believed it. Lily tugged on Isabella's dress lightly, showing her the picture she had drawn earlier, a scribbled bright swirl of colors that vaguely resembled a flower. She giggled softly as if she instantly decided Isabella was a friend. Isabella didn't know what to do with the warmth in her chest. It had been a long time since someone looked at her without analyzing or judging her. This man's eyes were steady, soft, curious, but not greedy. Not demanding. Not weighing her worth. It felt foreign. After a full 10 seconds of silence, the hostess stepped back awkwardly, unsure why her authority suddenly felt so thin. I'll send someone to take your order." She walked away quickly, and the moment she disappeared, the dining room erupted in a soft ripple of whispers. Who is he? Why did he defend her? Are they together? Is she with him or is he with her? Ethan ignored all of it. He simply pulled out the chair for Isabella with a polite nod, then guided Lily into the seat beside him, carefully adjusting her napkin and smoothing her hair. He acted like he had done this 1,000 times before, not in luxury places, but in life, making others feel seen, making his daughter feel safe. Isabella sat down slowly, her heart still racing with the shock of it all. There was something surreal about this moment. In her world, people didn't defend her without knowing who she was. No one casually stood up for the heiress to the Vance fortune unless they wanted a connection, a reward, or a headline. But this man didn't even ask her name. "Thank you," she whispered. "You looked like you needed help," Ethan replied, wiping Lily's hands with a small sanitizer wipe he kept in his pocket. "And no one else was offering." "People usually don't," she admitted. He raised an eyebrow. "People usually don't help you?" Isabella hesitated. She didn't want to sound arrogant or privileged. But the truth was painful in a way she rarely admitted. "They help my last name," she said quietly. "Not me." Ethan stared at her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "That's a lonely way to live." She blinked. No one, not a single person in her entire life, had ever said those words aloud to her. Not even her father. It was as if this stranger had reached straight through the facade she wore and touched something raw beneath it. Lily dropped her crayon onto the table, and it rolled toward Isabella. She picked it up and placed it back in the little girl's hand. Lily smiled up at her, her eyes sparkling with innocent trust. "You're pretty," the little girl said with a genuine sweetness that hit Isabella harder than any compliment she'd heard from high society. Ethan chuckled. "She says that to kind people." Isabella swallowed, her chest tightening, not with sadness, but with something tender she hadn't felt in years. "You didn't have to do that," she said after a moment. "Stepping in the way you did." Ethan shrugged. "I didn't think about it, honestly. The tone she used, it didn't sit right with me." She tilted her head. "You noticed that?" "I have a daughter," he replied simply. "You learn to recognize when someone's being talked down to." Something in her melted at those words. For a moment, there was no noise in the restaurant. Just him. Her. The small child scribbling happily on paper. A warm bubble of stillness in a place built on noise and arrogance. And then, as Isabella opened her mouth to ask him how someone like him, gentle but confident, simple but grounded, walked into her life so effortlessly, the door to the restaurant swung open. A sudden hush fell over the room, people straightened, chairs stopped moving, and Isabella's world tilted. Her father had entered the restaurant, Edward Vance. The man who owned half the buildings in this district, the man whose presence could freeze a room with a single look, the man who warned her never to trust outsiders. He walked with purpose, surrounded by 2 assistants who trailed behind him, carrying folders and hushed phone calls. His suit was pressed perfectly, his expression sharp with the constant weight of power. He saw her instantly, his stride faltered, his eyes narrowed, and Isabella felt something heavy slide into the pit of her stomach. Her father looked at her, then at the man beside her, then at Lily. Everything froze, and that was when Isabella realized the evening was about to take a turn she never expected.